with Brookes podcast. Hello. I'm so glad that I have two guests here with me to talk about Castle of Water by Dane Huckelbridge, who's the cutest. So I have two books with books. Books with Brookes. I actually realized the other day that my entire folder was named Books with Brookes, but both words were spelled with an E. For months, maybe a year. Bookies. It's been like that, and I just noticed it. Yeah. So Books with Books. I'm here with Laura. Hello, Laura.
Hello.
Would you like to say anything about yourself? You're wearing a really cool ring.
Oh, thank you. My fox ring, it's from London. No big deal. I only bought it so that when people complimented it, I could say, oh, I got it in Europe.
It's from London.
It's working.
Yeah.
It's great. No regrets.
Well, now it's on this podcast. It's really paid for itself. Yes. Good job. And we have Tracey.
Hello.
Tracey, what's up?
Oh, not that much. I actually have a trip to Europe planned for September, and now I know I just need to bring back some bling as a conversation, jumping off point.
Slip your European adventure in anywhere. Yeah. Where are you going?
I'm going to Ireland.
Oh my gosh.
Can you do an Irish accent?
Maybe by the time I get back. Save that for episode whatever follows this.
Yeah. We'll have a great time.
Thanks.
That sounds awesome.
I'm excited.
So let's do a quick rundown of Castle of Water by Dane Huckelbridge. A quick plot synopsis. Everyone that's listening, we won't do any spoilers in this part, and then we'll let you know once the spoilers are going to begin. So if you want to read this book and you don't want to know how it ends, we'll give you a warning, and then you can stop listening. I don't really know how to handle that because it's a podcast about this book.
Is there a loud buzzer?
Yeah.
Warning?
I'll get the cat to meow right into the microphone.
I'm curious to know how much of the Air and Sea show?
Oh, yes.
Air and
also,
Waters.
That's a good point, Tracey. Thank you. Today is the second day of the Chicago Air and Water show, so we might have some really loud jets zooming around.
So don't get that confused with whatever the alarm sound is going to be for the spoiler alert. It's no, it's just a jet.
Unless it's perfectly timed, and then we could just use it as the alarm sound.
Yeah. Just
we'll
add
see.
that to your stock.
Yeah,
footage.
Don't be frightened. I don't think we're under attack. It's the Air and Water show. Okay, Castle of Water. So this is a story. I don't know if I would call it a love story necessarily. It's more of like an adventure survival story probably. But we have two characters who don't know each other. They're strangers, and they are stranded together on a desert. Well, it's not really a desert island. It's like a tropical island. In French Polynesia.
What's the difference between a desert island and
I don't know.
Another type of island?
There's no fresh water on it.
Or is it deserted island and then we just sort of started saying it wrong? Right? Because the desert island doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, maybe.
Right.
So they get stranded on a deserted island.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Sure, yes. I like that. I don't know.
That's a can
or
of worms.
Desert island, right?
I don't know how to spell either word. Fair. And the island is very small, so they're in a plane crash on their way to French Polynesia. They end up on this tiny island. It's really little. It takes what did he say, half an hour to walk around the whole thing. It's a few acres. It's very small. It does have fresh water, and it has banana trees. And Dane, I almost said Dane Huckelbridge gets stranded there. No. Yeah. Barry Bleecker gets stranded there, and he's an American finance bro who is starting his life over as a painter. Before he's stranded. And then
I don't picture him as a bro with a name like Barry Bleecker. I picture him sort of bumbling, wearing ill-fitted tweed and stuff. But...
Well, he kind of didn't fit into the finance thing.
Yeah.
I always think of Barry Beaker as in the Muppet. But
that's
a very
Beaker.
Different imagery.
Tucker, my brother, does an excellent Beaker impression. If you've never seen it,
I have not.
One time he did it in a lake, and I almost drowned because I was laughing so hard.
Oh, jeez.
So ask for that next time you see him.
I will.
Yeah. Barry works in finance, and he quits his job, and he's starting his new life by taking this vacation to visit the grave of his favorite painter, which is Paul Gauguin. I'm always going to say it wrong. Paul Gauguin.
I would say Gauguin.
I'm
sure that's wrong. No.
Gauguin.
I
did YouTube this, but it immediately left my brain after learning it. Yeah.
Did you say Bulgy?
Paul
Gauguin.
Nailed it.
Yeah.
Sure. And then Sophie Dussel is a French architect who is on her honeymoon when the plane goes down. And she is going to French Polynesia to visit the grave of her favorite singer, Jacques Brel. I don't know if I said that right.
I mean, I bought it.
You did. You looked at me like
I did. Like finger guns. You can't see it because, there's no image associated with podcasts.
And also her fiance is on the plane.
Yes. Or her new husband.
Oh, husband.
They're honeymooners. And he dies in the plane crash.
Wait, did we already say spoiler, or is that not a spoiler?
Oh.
Well, I mean, that's pretty immediate.
If you read the book jacket, you see it's just Sophie and Barry on the island, right? I think so. Okay. Maybe we should just read the book jacket. And then
that probably would, take a lot of pressure off.
Someone else already summarized it?
Yeah, someone else already did all of this work. So they get stranded on this island together, and then it's about their life there, but it's also about their lives before, and then they fall in love, and it's about how that all works. The cat's meowing. So that is the plot rundown. Okay, I always start with this. Yes or no? Did you like the book?
Yes.
2 yeses. I'm also a yes. 3 yeses. And in fact, this was the 11th book that our book club read, and it was the first one where I asked, did you like the book? And everyone said yes. Mm-hmm. There have been naysayers all along, except on this particular book. So,
and probably will be for every other
it will be interesting to see. Our August book was definitely, we were split.
That was almost a unanimous.
On Howl's Moving Castle. No, it wasn't. No, we were pretty split. It was 7-6.
Sure.
So I think that means, dear listeners, if you haven't already read Castle of Water, you should go and do it because it's a really good book. It's an easy, quick read. It's pretty short. It will make you feel, the cat's begging. It will make you feel all the feels. Yeah, he's cute. It might make you cry. It might make you never want to get on a plane again. It might make you want to go to French Polynesia, right?
A little both.
So anyways.
It might make you want to have a banana.
Or not.
Or never.
You might read too much about bananas. Might give you a ton of anxiety about wearing contacts.
Already have that.
Right. Already have. Okay. The cat is begging. So at this point, we are going to start inserting spoilers. So if you haven't read the book, turn this off, go read it. Or keep listening and find out what happens.
And the Air and Water show has failed us because they did not announce that was the spoiler.
Yeah, we didn't get the Blue Angels as we called them in. So the intro, you know how I love first sentences. Mm-hmm. I love them. And this first sentence is, the flat is in the 10th arrondissement of Paris on a derelict street called Chateau d'Eau. What do you think about that?
That was impressive pronunciation.
Oh my, do I sound French?
You really do.
Wow, thank you.
I did not read the summary of this book. I just dove right in, and so based off the first sentence and what type of book I thought it was going to be, it definitely took a sharp turn.
Right, because we started in Paris.
Yeah.
Oh, also, you listened to this, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, you
so
did.
You should be able to pronounce all the French words for us.
Oh, most definitely. Oui.
Oui. Yeah, no, I love that you listened to the books because I think it's a whole different experience. And I do feel like sometimes it impacts whether or not you like the book in a different way than other people.
Sure.
Do you think that's right?
Yes. Well, and, it's not as influential as watching the movie, but you definitely get some of the influence as far as what type of accent someone does for this character or how they make them sound can influence versus what you imagine them speaking in your head. We were just talking about that different character, the audiobook made them sound sassy and bold, and then no one else read them like that in their head, and it affects how you interpret the character. I almost feel like it can be also a plot giveaway, because in that book specifically, which we can talk about this later, but it was a character who was extremely innocuous in the text, but turned out to be evil. So it's if you're reading them that way or you're hearing their voice that way, it might give away that they're going to be important later or that they're going to have this turn. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But was it read by a man or a woman? Man.
Oh, okay. That kind of makes sense because I feel like Barry's perspective is the one we're getting.
Which is interesting because there's some books where then each character, if it's a man or a woman, they'll have, a male and a female doing it, but then for a lot of them it's just one or the other, and so the man will do a female voice or the female will do a male voice, and so you have both. So this is a male, and then when he's doing Sophie, it's a male doing a female voice. A female French voice. Yeah.
So he just made his voice a little bit higher or something?
And Frencher.
Ooh, and more French, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think listening to audiobooks, I think counts as reading.
Oh yeah, for sure. I was just curious.
There's some people that don't.
There are people who say that, but I don't think so. It's all about like, you're ingesting the story, and whatever way to do that, that's best for you. Like that's kind of like saying like Braille isn't reading. Well, yeah, it is. It is. Mm-hmm. It's a different thing, but it's the same. Like you're accepting the story somehow.
Yeah. Well, I do think that there's obviously like an ease of checkout though if you are listening to something versus reading it. So it's like you have to be committed to the listening process.
Definitely, and there are times I'll realize I wasn't paying attention and I have to go back. Yeah.
Yeah. But if you do that reading too, it's like, oh, I've read this same paragraph 4 times and I haven't absorbed any of it.
Especially late at night, like if I'm trying to read and then I'm falling asleep, and in the morning I just have to reread everything I read because I don't remember.
Sure.
I was falling asleep. Okay. So chapter 1 is we're in Paris, and it's all about a man whose name we don't know, who's visiting a cemetery and leaving a bunch of bananas on the cemetery. And he's like spotted by these American students who know who he is. They recognize him. But they never say his name or anything like that. And they say things like, whose grave is this anyway? And like, do you think it's all true? And that kind of stuff. So what do we know at the end of this chapter?
I feel like that was like a way for us to kind of start emotionally preparing ourselves for an ending that's going to involve an element of death. I don't know. Right. I thought that was just like, get ready because we're at a grave, because eventually someone will die. Yeah. And you need to, guard your heart.
This is a sad story. Here we go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And some people at book club didn't like that structure because they thought it was kind of spoilery, that we knew a character was going to die.
Mm-hmm. Who was important
enough that he would go to the grave. Yeah.
Right.
What did you think about the structure of it?
I mean, I agree, where it's just sort of set you up to like, okay, this isn't going to be a happy ending. This is how it started. But I like that style of sort of showing you the very end first and then showing you how it happened.
Yeah, how we got to this point. Yeah. Tracy, what did you think?
Well, I mean, I was of the mindset that I didn't want to know too much too early. But I do think that starting with a grave and not necessarily knowing who it belonged to, not to get like too far ahead in the book, but when she is giving birth and the first baby is a stillborn, like I was like, oh, it's just a baby's grave. Mm-hmm. So she makes it and they're going to be fine. So it did like set me up for a false hope, which I eventually came to, resent. Mm-hmm. But it didn't bother me for the most part. But I'm also kind of like quick to feel emotional, so if I could get some sense of like,
oh my god, same. No, I felt like it was good for me because the ending was so fucking sad.
Yeah.
And at least I had some preparedness for that.
Mm-hmm. But I feel like when you brought that up during our meeting, it was like there was a mix of gratitude and also like kind of distrust on the author, thinking that like maybe readers wouldn't be able to handle it.
Yeah.
Unless it had that kind of foreshadowing. So when you first mentioned it, I was of the mindset that you didn't appreciate that.
For me, it made the book more enticing to know that, like, okay, there's a story here, because compared to some other books that are sort of, like, don't have, like, a big crescendo event, that are just, like, about a slice of life or, like, about general things, I like the fact that you knew there was going to be some sort of event, impactful.
Yeah, we knew we were building up to a death. Yeah. It was just, who is it going to be? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And one thing I also wondered, because I remember when we were chatting about this in the original meeting, in describing Barry in this opening chapter, he does kind of come off as like older than maybe he actually is. Yeah. And so a part of me wondered, well, if we are at
they're going to go home and she dies later.
Yeah, she didn't necessarily have to die on the island.
Up until like the very end of the book.
I totally agree. Because he did read as kind of an old man.
Yeah.
Like, he forgets his contacts. He forgets to put on shoes. He's kind of forgetful. He saves his sandwich. Like, he seems kind of slow almost. Like, And there's that part where he goes and he checks on her, he listens for someone else. So someone else is there with him. And so you don't know who that would be. Although, at least I knew it wasn't like a lover because they weren't in the same room. They weren't in the same bed.
Yeah. Well, but if you thought they were old, that didn't seem that weird to me.
That they would sleep separately.
Mm-hmm. Or I wondered if maybe he was up and about for a while before leaving.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. Yeah.
But I also think that I was only entertaining that idea because I really, really wanted to hold on to
you can
the
think
fact
of
that it was her.
Yeah, because I didn't see it as that spoilery because there were so many ways your brain can take it where it's no, it's fine.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, because it says... Oh, yeah, okay. No, so Tracy, I think the way that you read it is really... The man puts on an argyle socks and scuffed leather brogans?
Oh.
Drogon?
That must be shoes. And tiptoes out of his bedroom door. He considers briefly leaving a note. So he tiptoes out of his bedroom door. So that does imply that someone might be sleeping in there. Mm-hmm. And then he considers briefly leaving a note in the kitchen, but doubts he'll be gone long enough to even be missed. He does, however, pause at the end of the hallway to press his ear to another door and give it a listen. Mm. So I guess it could be, we could read this that there's someone in the room with him and then also someone else at the end of the hall.
Yeah.
That was not my interpretation, but I think that is a fair one also. Satisfied with the silence, he leaves the flat.
It's also at this point as a reader, we're only on page 4.
Yeah.
So I think the author knows that we're not looking very closely at this right now.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
It'd
sort
be
of
interesting to reread this book.
Something happened.
Yeah. Anyway.
This house contains
Leave your
people
house.
besides him, and he's trying not to wake them up.
Yeah, people thought he was old. That's good.
Yeah.
Do either of you wear contacts?
Yes.
No.
Oh, man. Let's talk about this part. So, a big part of this book is when Barry crashes, he by some twist of fate, notices a plastic baggie with contact solution floating by, and he grabs it in the wreckage. And then he ends up on the island with 3 pairs of contacts, and that's all he has. And he's got to make them last, for as long as he's on this island. And of course, no one knows how long that's going to be.
Does he have, is he taking them out into, a case and stuff? Does he have solutions?
It sounds like he does, yeah.
Right. Okay, so he grabbed, a whole bag of, all his eyes stuff.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it sounds like maybe he has one case and, one little travel size bottle. Mm-hmm. And then a couple of extra pairs of contacts in their little, doodad thing. And so he's stressed the whole time he's on the island about losing his contacts and not being able to see, and he has really poor vision. I loved this, and no spoilers, but I interviewed Dane Huckelbridge. He had some really fun stuff to say about this topic, and why he included it in the story. But I feel if you wear contacts or if you wear glasses or you have impaired vision, I used to think all the time yeah, what if there's a zombie apocalypse? I'm unfit. How will I survive? Because you don't have that many contacts at once. Even if I had a year's worth and it was the very beginning of the year,
Not even zombie apocalypse, but even when you go on vacation, I'll pack 1 extra pair, but it's say you're going on a 2-week vacation, how many extra pair, just in case, you never know, and then you're screwed, and you're in another country, and you're not going to be able to get contacts. I don't know.
Then what do you do?
But if you've never worn them and never had to think like that, it's just something you can't even wrap your mind around.
Yeah. It's hard to describe, though, but it is... I do feel there's always, this low level of, Anxiety about not being able to see and being in a situation where you desperately need to.
Mm-hmm. Do you tend to pack glasses? Do you have backup glasses? I don't know.
I have glasses. Well, I was going to say one of the lessons from this is maybe put your glasses in with your contacts because, mine, I pack them separately. Mm-hmm. Pack them together in a, flotation.
Yeah, because it does seem kind of
around your neck.
Glasses would have been easier for him to maintain.
And also more risky. He wouldn't have been able to dive with them or.
Well, that's true, but I feel he could have made what are those called, croquis, where you a neck strap thing. So yeah, I mean, and of course they could have broken, but they could be fixed in a way that contacts if they come out of your eye they're done.
Yeah. But say because I work with a lot of people who wear glasses and don't really have contacts, and so say you get in a plane crash, you're wearing glasses. The likelihood they'll stay on your face.
Well, that's a good point. Yeah.
0.
Especially in water.
And then you don't even have contacts, you're way more screwed.
Yeah. That's a really good point.
So.
Yeah. Okay, good point. But I loved this. So that was sort of throughout the story. this guy Barry's all constantly like taking his contacts out and forgetting to put them in and forgetting to put them out, and he's babying them and taking really good care of them and stuff, but he eventually gets down to his last pair, and then it's like, this is it, and after I lose these, like, that's it, I won't be able to see anything.
It made me wonder, again, this is like only if you wear contacts, but because say you wore dailies, like they probably would not last that long, you know, so you must have had monthlies at least, which it was lucky.
Which, like, I used to wear my monthlies for 4 months.
I wonder, like, so if you can push monthlies for a couple months, if you had dailies, how long could you push them?
Yeah, I don't know, because I feel like dailies are made of different.
Yeah,
like they're not as hardy.
They're thinner, so they would have.
Yeah,
just saying.
Yeah, luckily he had monthlies.
I was also thinking, because I know people with prescription sunglasses, that what if the only thing that floated by was your prescription sunglasses?
That's what you have. I mean, it would be kind of nice, but not at night, obviously.
Sure.
But also, like, how much do you really do at night in that situation? Like, I go to a camp in the summers where there's no electricity, and once it gets dark, it's pretty much like you either sit next to the fire or you, like, go to sleep because you can't see anything, you know? And even if you have, like, a headlamp or you have, like, a lantern or whatever, like, it's still not like that same. Great of light.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
and
yeah.
they also, it's not, at least in the book, didn't describe any, like, there wasn't pastimes that they were partaking
it's not like
in.
they were trying to read.
We can't play checkers.
Right. Oh my god.
That would
they should have carved for each other, like, a chess set.
I'm surprised that tic-tac-toe never came up. You've got all that sand and sticks. But, you know.
So much
what do I know?
Also, tic-tac-toe sucks.
They could have taught him French, maybe, in the sand.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think it's hard to learn a language without being able to write anything.
In the sand.
Well, he painted, though. He did paint. Eventually, you could set up a whole little alphabet.
Yeah. It's funny because I kept thinking while reading this book, like, oh my god, they have nothing to read.
Yeah.
Like, that would be so hard for me. Like, what do they do all day? Like, they can't read? They don't have a phone to play on? Like, literally, what do you do?
Mm-hmm. Well, and if you didn't... You ever have those days where you realize you haven't spoken a word in, like, a long time?
That was me yesterday.
Do you think it gets that way? Like, if you literally, there's nothing to read, not even, you know, a tag in your shirt or something, that then when you finally see words, is it weird? Do you think you
forget how to read?
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
Oh. I'm sure they've studied this. I don't think you would forget how to read. I think it would be like riding a bike.
Yeah.
Especially when you're...
old enough.
They've been reading their whole lives already. Like, they're in their 30s. Yeah. Or she turns 30, I think, on the island. Sure. Yeah. Well, so I love the contact thing. I think that was really fun. So the first thing Barry does when the plane crashes and he washes up onto the shore, he washes up onto this beach, and the first thing he does is he pulls a bunch of banana or palm fronds and starts a signal fire. What's the first thing you guys would do?
I mean, I think, like, gravitating toward fire is, like, a logical first step, because it's, like, regardless, you know it's going to get dark, and I feel like that's,
Do you think you could make a fire, though? I guess that was my point.
How did he make his? I'm trying to remember.
I was just wondering that.
Did he have a lighter? Because he smoked?
Yeah, he has a lighter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Well, sense.
Yeah. After several trips to the beachhead, he had a rather impressive pile, and after a few dabs of his lighter, a convincing flame.
There you go.
He stood beside it, watching and waiting, certain the spotlights of some chopper or seaplane would come blazing from the murk. Yeah, signal fire. It's a good idea.
Yeah.
To do first.
I would think so. The mind would stem mostly just from not wanting to be, like, in pitch black.
Yeah, of, like, being afraid.
Yeah. Yeah, like, just wanting the comfort of light.
Yeah. I had to sleep with the light on last night because I was scared. So
what were you scared of?
I tried to watch Mindhunter season 2
at night,
and I got so scared I didn't get through a full episode. And so then I went in there and I took the cat and I turned the light on, and then slept with the light on all night. I am not brave. Okay. So chapter 8. I think chapter 8 is my favorite chapter, which is the chapter about the plane crash. Where we get the backstory of the pilot and what happened with the plane crash. And I think my favorite thing about it is that this whole story is so fantastic, right? Like, they're in a plane crash and then in the middle of nowhere, and there's this island and they get stranded on it, and, like, no one can find them, and it seems crazy in today's modern world, right? That, like, you can't be found, or that a plane could crash and someone could not know where it is. Although we do see that happen occasionally with flights in modern times. even big ones, but I thought this was so well done because it described, like, it was so realistic. Mm-hmm. Like, everything in this chapter was like, oh, yeah, okay, so that's how that happened. Oh, sure, that's why he didn't radio back to the tower. Like, that's why they were off their flight plan. Like, that's it. It just, I felt like it took a really fantastic event and made it seem really believable.
Sure. Mm-hmm. I thought it was also a really sobering reminder of, like, how much we put our trust in other people without even, like, really realizing it. Like, every time you get on a plane, it's not that you're just trusting the aircraft, but you're trusting the person who's driving it. Anytime you get into a cab, anytime you're, I don't know,
well, there was
have someone prepare your food.
Similar event in Breaking Bad. Did you watch Breaking Bad?
Yeah.
And how you have, Jesse starts dating that girl who's a drug addict, and then she ODs, and Walt is there and lets her die. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen Breaking Bad.
Whoa.
But, like, her dad, so then she dies, and her dad is an air traffic control person, and so then he finds out about her death, and he's so distraught at work that he messes up, and then these 2 planes crash and people die, and, like, everything was affected.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. And that was sort of the moment in the show when he became the villain, and, like, all these things were connected.
Ooh, yeah.
And we don't think about stuff like that where, like, you know, maybe you cut someone off in traffic and then they're pissed off and they do this and this happens and this happens.
Butterfly effect.
Someone dies.
Yeah. Big time. Ooh, yeah. We should all watch Breaking Bad. Okay, in the podcast. Let's go. Yeah. That's such a good point. And I feel like initially, like, you're really kind of mad at the pilot, but then it's kind of like, oh, he's, like, a sad guy, like, just also trying to get by. Like, everyone's just doing their best. And then they, you die in a fucking plane crash.
Like, he didn't want to do that.
Yeah. He tried his best to save, like, to not crash the plane.
They can't all be Sully.
Sully?
The pilot?
Yes,
Sully the pilot.
Sully,
right. Sorry, I was thinking of
Sullenberger?
Sully from Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman. Does anyone remember
what a reference.
that Sully?
Vaguely.
Oh gosh, it's not important, but yes, no, that makes a lot more sense. Sully, the pilot who saved the day, and is now, like, the go-to correspondent on, like, any news station when there's, like, an air traffic control issue.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh
yeah, Sully. I always think of the 30 Rock joke where I think it's Matt Damon, like, is also playing a pilot, and he's like, yeah, or he could have just not hit all those geese like I do every time I fly. Not hit a flock of geese. And I think that's, like, a really funny, like, outlook on it.
That's true. It's like, well, you get credit for, like, cleaning up a problem, but let's not forget that you created the problem.
Right.
So,
Fly around him. I don't know. I don't know what you're supposed to do in that situation. I'm clearly not a pilot. Okay. On page 63, they're listening to the radio, and Sophie hears that they've called off the search, and they are presumed dead. And I feel like, maybe I've just been reading a lot of survival stories lately, but there's always this point in them where it's like all hope is lost. Something happens that removes all hope, and then it's sort of like, how are your protagonists going to respond to that loss of hope? And I think in this case, like, Sophie's pretty downtrodden, but Barry kind of comes into his own, and Barry's kind of like, oh no, like, let's go climb this mountain, and I got this, and I'm in charge now, and it's okay, we're gonna figure it out. And I feel like he kind of rises to the occasion in a way that he hasn't yet.
Well, I wonder if it was because, like you said, he didn't fit in, and I did picture him sort of, like, awkward, then he's the only man there, and no one is there to, like, make him feel less than, that he can, like, be what he always, like, wanted to be inside. No one could, like, make fun of him or
I like that. Him. He does seem to kind of, like, have a great time. Like, he loves to fish, and he finds out he's so good at, like, boating, and, like, he does seem to kind of, like, oh shit, like, maybe this is what I was supposed to be doing all along.
Well, he's, like, a good example of, like, the value of accepting your circumstances versus resisting them. And I feel like Sophie probably spent a lot of the time just kind of, like, resisting what is versus just, like, embracing the situation that is now their life.
Well, she also had the difficult position of mourning
the loss of
her. Yes.
That was not meant to be, like, a criticism of her. But I think, like, one of Barry's, like, winning attributes was his ability to, like, roll with the punches.
Yeah, sort of just figure it out. I wonder if he was always like that, or if this is, like, a new leaf he's turned over since he, like, quit his job.
I think the latter.
Yeah.
He was already in that sort of mood.
Because he almost, and she yells at him for it the first night. He's like, oh shit, I'm in this hammock, we're on the beach, like, this ain't so bad. And she's like, you dick, like, my husband died. Like, this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. Like, this is not a movie. Like, get your feet back on the ground. Mm-hmm. But I kind of feel like he never quite loses that, like, childlike innocence or something. I don't know what it is.
Sure. Or, like, well, optimism and, like, gratitude. The fact that he, like, found his contact lenses is enough to celebrate. So perhaps it literally enhanced his perspective. Mm-hmm. Get it?
Good one.
Contacts.
Good one, Tracey.
Seeing the world.
Wow. I loved it. Yeah. What did you think of Sophie at the beginning? She's pretty mean to him.
She's pretty mean.
But I thought that was a very understandable temperament to carry, at least in the beginning, given what she goes through before being washed ashore. Like, I don't know if any of us are in a position to judge grief.
I know. Well, that's
right. But it was also like...
Well, because I feel like even if... Like, wouldn't you just still be happy there's another person there?
Yes.
Like, that you're not just alone?
Yes.
Like, no matter who it is, basically. Like, even if it had been the pilot whose fault it was, like, you would still probably feel relief that you aren't alone.
And didn't he, like, help her? He found her and helped her, and then when she wakes up, she's bitchy to him.
Yeah. She's like, what? You slept all day.
Yeah. But it also makes me wonder, like, is it possible for her to recognize that and experience that gratitude on some level, but just have it overpowered by whatever emotions she's feeling in the moment? Like, is it possible that she did have that?
Yeah, I think so. Although it does continue. Like, they fight, fight viciously for a year.
Right.
For a full year.
But I think that's, like, another instance, again, like, of her resisting circumstances, you know, wishing that Barry was her husband, or wishing things were different.
And I guess you would, too, because it's like, you came so close to being stranded there with your husband, but instead it's this random fucking American who's, like, so annoying. Okay, so there's a big hurricane, and their shelter gets blown away, and their kit bag with, like, everything in it that is, like, all of their survival stuff. The flare gun, and their, like, heat blanket, and their matches, and their cooking utensils, and, like, literally everything. Everything that came in the survival kit is, like, gonna get washed away. So Barry's like, I will save it. And he puts on his, like, Superman cape, and he goes down, and he gets washed away in this, like, tsunami.
You have to mention the kiss on the cheek.
Oh, yeah, he kisses her on the cheek. Oh, my God, good point. Kissed her on the cheek.
Then he puts on his
he's
cape.
like, I'm so brave. And then he gets washed out to sea. But luckily, he is able to, like, cling on to this tree.
Right.
That's, like, floating debris in the ocean. So he's, like, not drowning. He's pretty much fine. He has the compass, so he, like, knows where the island is. He's just kind of got to wait out the storm. But while he's waiting out the storm, he sees the lights of a ship in the distance. So he shoots off all the flares, like 5 of them, and he waits, and the ships don't come for him. So then he's stuck with this decision of, like, okay, do I go after the ships, where I just saw the ships? Do I try to paddle towards them on my tree boat, or do I just go back to the island? What would you do?
I mean, I guess, you know, you don't know what you'd actually do in the moment, but I think I would go towards the ships. Because it's like the possibility of something versus going back to the unknown.
I see that point, but I would do the opposite in response to that. Because, like, to me, to go toward the ships, like, first of all, they're not stationary. Mm-hmm. So who's to say that they're not traveling away from him? Yeah. So he could be paddling forever and still not reach them, whereas the island is there and it's, you know, a set distance that he knows he can cover because he's already covered it. And, like, I feel like having seen the ships, that's enough to, like, give him a sense of hope where he can return to the island and know that there is a possibility of something beyond there. And, like, now you can, like, regroup and form a legit plan to get off.
I'm not saying it would be smart, a smart decision
sure.
just head towards the ships. I'm just saying that's probably what my mind would do, almost like if you are stranded in a desert and you see, like, something that looks like water and you just go towards it. I feel like that's where my mind would be.
Sure.
But it would be stupid.
Yeah.
They're probably way farther away than I realize. Swimming is very hard. And he was very weak.
And he could lose, like, the direction of the island. I mean, he could end up literally stranded on this tree no idea which direction to go and like no hope of rescue.
Well, it's almost like it's kind of a suicide mission. Like you're willing to die trying. Yeah. At that point.
Yeah, but I think he also feels really responsible for Sophie, who's back on the island, and he has all of their stuff. So it's if I don't go back, she dies. Mm-hmm. She definitely dies. Yeah. Like, no.
That's true. I forgot about that element. That like it's not just about him. Yeah. And that if you were emotionally attached to someone at this point, is that when he realizes that he is sort of?
I think so. Yeah. And that's when they go back, and she's like really relieved he's there, and then from then on, they get along at least. I think it takes a little like 6 more months for them to fall in love, but
that's when they realize how much they needed each other.
Yeah. And like they have to rely on each other in order to survive, or else neither of them will survive. You know? Mm-hmm. All right. Laura, your favorite part. Okay. Baltazar.
Such a good name.
But yeah, it's a great name. Baltazar the octopus.
Who named it that?
I think Barry called it that. So he's fishing from this pool that's like sort of just a like still pool where like the ocean is kind of washing in, but it's pretty still, and he's able to like see the bottom, and he can fish there without having to go out into the water. But he's this huge octopus, which is described as like, Laura's making just like the worst face. Just this huge octopus, and it steals the fish off his line. And not only that, but it'll sometimes take the hook and break the line. And they only have, X number of fishing hooks or whatever. So it's really bad. It's a big problem. It means they get a lot less fish. It means like they could run out of hooks. Like eventually Barry's like, I gotta kill this thing. So he gets his big boy britches on again.
Isn't what motivated him to kill it like romance?
Yeah, the birthday surprise,
right?
Which is like I don't want to like go on too much of a tangent, but that's the thing. It's like the one impediment to you having like protein in your diet is this thing, and yet your only impulse to actually get rid of that problem is like
to impress a girl.
Yeah, it's like shouldn't it be incentive enough?
The reason would be what you said. We're like, oh, we need the fish that's stealing, but
that's right, because she wants octopus salad.
Yeah,
for her birthday.
Why he did it.
Right. Yeah. And that's how I felt about the soap too. It's like hygiene has been an issue for so long, but you don't feel the need to build soap until you want, your lady friend.
Your date.
Yeah. And so that was the only. I mean, I really loved this book, but in terms of like, if I had to like pull like tiny criticisms, it was just like this timeline of discovery or like realization is it's interesting.
But I don't think it's far off from reality.
Yeah, I mean, isn't that why we all do everything, basically?
Well, especially men are so motivated by, like, impressing women or showing their value that I don't think it's that far off.
And they were getting along okay, like, without soap and, like, without... So I guess, it was kind of like, well, we can survive without doing these things, so why bother? Until there was this additional motivation of, like, oh, I can make her really happy. Mm-hmm. By doing this stuff for her. But that's a good point. Yeah. Like, yeah, he probably just should have killed this thing earlier.
But I mean, it was incredibly scary, and he didn't have the motivation to do it until he wanted to impress her.
Right.
That's true. Okay.
And then he jumps in, and it says, the octopus struck first. In a blast of black ink and a nightmare of tentacles, it was upon him, knocking him backward into an 8-pronged headlock. And then it bites him, which is so upsetting. The son of a bitch was biting him.
At that point, what's even the point? Just let yourself go. It's really disgusting.
You love it. I wonder how big it was. Like,
it sounded huge.
It sounded
like it was like had him in
really
like a
big,
bear hug.
like 2 feet.
Yeah.
And octopuses are like really smart,
so smart,
and strong.
So it like saw him coming and then launched an attack. Like, that's crazy.
Which is why it was so stupid for him to do.
Yeah. Well, I do feel like Barry does a lot of stuff that's kind of dumb. Like, he's a little bit impulsive, doesn't really think it through. Like, take your contacts out before you jump in there, you dumb idiot. You only have 2 pairs of them. Right. Which he doesn't do.
But maybe he thought he didn't stand a chance of slaying it unless he could see it.
Octopuses just sort of look like blobs all the time anyway, and it'd be less scary not to see the suction cups.
Oh, God, right? But they do kill him, and they do eat him. And it's a delicious romantic octopose salad type of dinner.
His whole face gets messed up,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, he's like a big scar on his face the rest of his life. In fact, that's part of how those American students recognize him, is because his scarred face. So it's pretty severe, it sounds like. It really, really bit his face.
Yeah, well, they have beaks.
With its beak! Why do they have beaks?
Because they're disgusting, Brooks. And that really is the theme of this book, is that octopuses are the devil.
Wait, do you hate my rug? Did you notice this when you walked in?
Oh, I did not notice that.
Is that a kraken?
It's an octopus.
Where did this come from? This dislike?
Oh, yeah.
Is there an origin story?
I don't know if there's a specific one.
Did an octopus hurt you?
And I often say if I ever saw one in the wild, I might die of a heart attack. I mean, yeah, I don't think it was something specific. I think it was just learning about them, and you learn about how smart they are, but that they have beaks and their heads are just like bulbous sacs. Like, they're so disgusting yet so smart at the same time that it's really the worst combination. You know, you watch these videos, like you put one in a jar and it can unscrew the jar and get itself out. It's terrifying. It's like a horror movie.
There's like all those aquarium stories of like the octopus who like gets out of its thing at night once everyone leaves and goes into other fish tanks and eats the fish and then puts itself back, and they can't figure out what's happening to the fish, and then eventually they install a camera and this octopus has been
What? At least you think about other terrifying things, they're at least dumb. You know, you like smack an alligator in the mouth or punch a shark in the eye and they're like, oh, sorry, and they leave you alone. An octopus will
fight
not.
back.
Punch a shark in the eye.
Yeah, and it's like, whoops,
that's what you're supposed
my
to
bad.
Yeah.
Not you, but an octopus, no.
Gills. Yeah.
Yeah. Are there instances of octopus? What's the plural of it? Just octopus?
Octopuses is the scientific plural. But then we have colloquially octopi, and then it's now accepted to say octopodes because people mistake. There's a whole. I mean, I should have gotten this down pat if I'm gonna go off.
No, make stuff up. Just do it.
Well, it's something about how people think that it's a Latin word, and so then they think they should make the Latin plural, which would be octopodes, but it's not actually a Latin word, and so now there's 3 sort of accepted.
I kind of like octopodes. I like that. I've never heard that.
I've always
you're
pronounced
saying it's wrong, but
it's
I
wrong.
like it.
It's the wrong, but it's the one that people like to use to sound smart. Actually, it's octopodes because it is so different and out there.
And you have to say it with a British accent.
Yes,
octopodes.
Yeah, but scientifically, it's just octopuses.
I wonder if there are instances of them attacking people. I mean, we're so afraid of shark attacks, but what if octopus are really what we need to be worried about?
Sure. Well, I'm sure they make it look like an accident, or they're never
leaving
leaving a trace.
They
probably happen all the time, but you would never know
octopus serial killers, and we didn't even know.
Have you seen what's that movie where basically super smart aliens come down to warn us, and they basically look like giant octopuses?
Oh, Arrival.
Yes.
Yes.
There's stuff again, further supports my theory, and then also The Simpsons, the super intelligent life form
Septipods
was octopuses type things.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You know, they're gonna take over the world one day. We need to leave them alone. Or else they remember.
They remember. I wonder if Balthazar told any of his fellows,
or say if they abducted
if
you.
I disappear, get
so
this guy.
many tentacles.
Yeah. Well, it's 8 arms you gotta fight off.
Yeah, they could hold you with several of them and then also probe you with the rest of them.
Oh, you've given this a lot of thought.
We have a lot to think about.
With the light on again tonight.
Yeah.
I hope Dane listens to this. And we're giving him his material for his next novel.
Yeah. Oh, God, just let it not be about octopus.
I bet it's not.
Really horrifying.
I don't know. Okay, Sophie becomes Prego.
Ugh.
This is really irresponsible, and I'd like to take a moment to talk about safe sex. Because this was very preventable.
Yeah, well, they didn't have any condoms.
But it was so reckless. You know, they were barely surviving that,
Well, they did. I feel like it was mentioned, how many precautions they were taking. I feel like Barry had some sort of rebuttal where he was like, but we were so careful. Whatever that means to them.
Yeah, well, I mean, no sex is 100%.
Well, of course, but apparently they took the precautions that were possible,
right?
Given
the circumstances.
Well, yeah. How did it? Was it just one night where they didn't think about all that, or was it that she wasn't getting her period and then they didn't realize she was?
Well, she makes some comment I just had my period, so I think it's probably fine. Oh, right?
Yeah,
Doesn't
she
say
does.
that?
I think she said that after the first
So
time.
I bet they were just like rhythm tracking. But also, it's not like she has an app. Like, she doesn't have her Clue app telling her when she's ovulating. Like, it's guesswork. And also, they don't even have a calendar. So I don't know how they even really know. Well, that's true. But, like, does that really help you if you're like, oh, today's April 14th? But I don't know.
No.
I mean, maybe she's marking it on a tree or something somewhere, but like, how do you keep track of that?
She is 30, so it's geriatric pregnancy.
High risk. High risk.
Jeez Louise. I was actually less upset about, well, never mind. I'll reserve that comment for when we get further. I don't want to jump.
Okay. Well, is it about her getting pregnant?
You know, accidents happen. That's one thing. But, like, I feel like the minute you know that that's happening, like, I don't understand why that wasn't incentive enough to get off the island. That was her rationale for staying. And it's just like, okay, that's if that's the decision that you're gonna make, like, what are your plans for, like, raising a kid on an island where there's nothing beyond, you know, your family unit, and, like, you're not gonna outlive that kid. Well, so you're also condemning it to a life of solitude if you stay. So
she knew about her messed up uterus, right?
Right.
And so,
but they had kind of downplayed it. Like,
yeah,
it's probably fine. Like, I think she did not have a concept of, like, how actually dangerous it could be. Which I wish that our friend Chelsea had talked to us more about that. She didn't really.
Well, by the description of it, it didn't seem like the doctor who mentioned it to her made it sound like as big of a deal as it was.
Well, because with modern medicine, it sounds like it isn't.
Right.
Like, I think Chelsea we did ask her about it, and she said that in modern medicine, it's no big deal as long as you mention it. But then it's something that all of a sudden becomes a huge deal when you have no medicine.
Yeah.
Which I think was mentioned during the actual delivery. It's like,
that normally they would have given her this medication, and then she'd be completely fine.
Yeah.
But without it, she's the opposite.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I kind of thought the same as you, Tracy, of like, well, there's that night where he's like, the ships are here, we gotta go. And she's like, I'm not leaving. And I feel like the instinct is like to protect your unborn child at all costs. And she knew for sure, like, I will live to the end of this pregnancy if we stay here, but I might not if we go.
Yeah.
So I think it was kind of a survival thing of like, let me just handle what I can handle, and then once the baby comes, we'll figure it out, kind of a thing. Right?
I get that.
But you would have gone after the ships.
Yeah, because I think it just depends on, like, what your definition of protection is. Like, to me, the best thing that you can do to ensure your baby's survival is to get off the island, because what kind of life is it going to have on an island? And, like, the minute that you have to care for something besides yourself, like, you're limiting your resources, and your chances of leaving become even slimmer.
Yeah.
So I just found it very surprising, but not being a mother, what do I know?
What do you know?
I mean, that's kind of what we see in Bird Box, where she doesn't. It's not until she has these kids that she starts like, okay, I gotta leave. I gotta figure out how to leave. Before then, you just take care of yourself and whatever you need to do. But then when you have other, especially like children, it's a whole different story.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I forgot about Bird Box. I definitely have to sleep with the lights on and the blinds closed. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I don't know. That's a tough call. But I don't know. Would you go after the ships or not? I don't know what I would do. Also, it was like stormy. I probably would have wanted to stay too. They were like at that point living kind of a happy life. Like they had enough food. They kind of figured it out. Like they were in love.
It was a little Gilligan's Island-esque.
Yeah. So it's like, yeah.
True.
Yeah, they were making all kinds of food that sounded really good, actually.
Like expensive sushi sounding.
They made spices.
But in the end, though, she still, even if it was downplayed by her doctor, she still had the knowledge in the back of her head that she had a potentially complicated pregnancy. So again, I get that they had a life, but I don't see how these these factors don't override that in the end.
Yeah. Who do you think is more equipped to survive? Sophie or Barry?
Does Barry have his contacts?
He has.
Okay.
2 pairs.
I think Barry.
I think Barry, yeah.
The things that she contributed were the things that made it, like, conveniences. her architecture background and all of that, and then the cooking and making it nice, making it a home. But then
they couldn't have built a boat without her.
That's true. And she did all of that deep diving too for like additional resources. But I still think that like Barry's like will to live and like charisma is ultimately
his will to live was, especially in the beginning, which is probably the most crucial time, like much stronger than hers.
And his shirt.
Oh, yeah, she lost her shirt in the plane crash somehow.
She was just naked, and where she would have been without his shirt. Until her hair grew long enough.
Which they like use that shirt for everything.
Yeah, and then eventually her hair grew long enough to just sort of become a shirt.
Yeah. Right. To like,
and I love how she like gave him a little show on her birthday by pinning her hair back.
Oh yeah, she pulled that hair back.
Earned it. That's how babies are made.
Pretty much.
Well, yep. When you're on a deserted island. Okay, so then the end comes and it's so sad. Yeah. It is so sad because I think it's set up so well where they like are happy. And it says like this is like the most idyllic time together. She's all pregnant. They're really in love. They have enough food. Like they kind of have figured it out. Like everything's fine. Oh wait, although he does lose his contacts, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So I guess you're right. No. So it wasn't that great actually.
Because then he couldn't go fishing anymore, and he didn't want her to go because she was so pregnant.
Yeah.
She had to go.
That's right. Yeah.
Oh gosh,
Yeah, he saves her from a shark, which is badass. Yeah. But in the process, he loses his final pair of contacts, and then he's extremely like hobbled because he can't see anything. He can't see the fish.
It was a lot easier to save someone from a shark than an octopus. It circles back to my point.
Just punch it in the eye.
Just like,
oh gosh.
Yeah.
I also feel like it's worth mentioning. One of the things that I noticed most reading this book was like how viscerally terrified I was of the descriptions of the aquatic life.
Yes.
A shark
the
or
ocean
an octopus.
Was so scary in this book.
Yeah. And it's like normally, I feel like the times when I'm on a boat is when I'm more likely to think about like all of the ocean life that's beneath me and like how vast the ocean is. Like you don't have those thoughts unless you're in that circumstance. And I think what was really special about this book is it does put you in the circumstances so that you can have the feelings or share them with the characters.
I totally agree. The ocean was so scary. It was almost like its own character because then they would talk about like the waves breaking, like the difference between the ocean, like inside the reef and then outside and how scary it was outside.
Drop off.
Yeah, and like it got dark blue and the waves got a lot bigger and like
things would like swim up.
Oh
and swim
god,
away.
yeah, like it's scary. And when she has to go and get when she was like wants the seaweed, I was like screaming like no, like don't do that because it just sounded so scary. And of course she's like it's fucking fine.
Well then again that also like just brings me back to like her priorities during this pregnancy are really good.
I think they talked about how it was like her body sort of telling her she needed some sort of mineral or nutrient. And I know Chelsea who's a nurse had said if a pregnant woman says something like you better believe it because she's gonna do it because it's coming from some sort of maternal instinct deep inside that no matter what he said she was gonna get that seaweed.
Like she knew she needed those vitamins. Which
is so interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, and kind of crazy. Also, I just noticed a line in the book that I really like that I didn't see before. So Barry loses his contacts, and it says, in the weeks that followed, there were spellbinding sunsets, incredible twilights, and jaw-dropping dawns, none of which were seen by the half-blind Barry. Color, certainly he saw some of that, but form and depth were suddenly strangers. Had he books, he might have been better off. Fuck yeah, he would have been! I thought about that this whole time. How do they not have any books? What do they do? It'd be so hard to get stranded on a deserted island.
You fall in love. That's it. It's just like The Bachelor.
That's how they got pregnant. They just had a ton of sex.
Right, because that's how everyone falls in love with one bachelor. Because what are the chances, 15 women would all fall in love with one dude? It's because there's nothing else to do.
Yeah.
They don't even get books, magazines, TV. You have nothing else to do but stare at someone.
And like no contact with the outside world.
Yeah, and even if you hate them in the beginning, eventually you love them almost like because you're trapped.
Yeah. Well, they also put them in extremely like high stakes, high stress situations.
Yeah.
And like when you're like oxytocin goes up and like then you are bonding. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I know. Well, so that's a good question though. So do you think Barry and Sophie, like, is their love real?
Well, I thought that was the purpose of those interjections of like the first time it happened, blah, 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 and we envision our life of what it would have been if we had met in different circumstances. And I thought the purpose of including that was to show that like, no, these two are actually compatible and it's not just a relationship of convenience, but rather...
I don't know, I think, or it could have been them romanticizing the connection they had now into something before, but the way she treated him, except maybe if it was just from grief, like would she even have given him the time of day? Ever? Or would he have ever stepped up to like be that type of guy that she did fall in love with? You know?
Yeah. I really liked their fake love story
Me
though.
too.
Yeah. Where she finds the painting he did of
in
her
the bathroom.
and then
Well,
he's
yeah,
like, and
I
that's when you kiss me? And she's like, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, not
Well, that made it slightly more realistic. That
Yeah.
it wasn't like this love at first sight. That he did have to convince her because it's kind of more similar to how it did happen. Mm-hmm. And that he was a little bit of a creep.
Yeah. But, yeah. Mm-hmm. Somebody's got to be kind of a creep, though. Yeah. That's the thing. That's the thing with, like, relationships, I feel like, is, like, it's creepy until it works. You know what I mean?
Right, well,
when it's reciprocated.
Well enough to give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah. Someone's got to go for it at some point. Yeah. Someone's got to put themselves out there.
Mm-hmm. Which, like, if someone's doing that to you and you aren't interested, like, comes across as creepy.
But if you are interested, it's romantic.
Yeah.
It's like winking. What a gamble. From someone you really want to wink from, so great. A wink from someone that you don't, it's like,
the
good
worst.
God.
What a lights on.
Yeah.
Do you use winking a lot, Tracey?
I don't wink, but I've been winked at.
Can you wink?
I can. What do you think? Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, I wish I was like
I
the
can't
type
read
of
those.
person who could throw a wink out. I'd like to think that at some point in my future I will feel confident to do that.
You should just go winking around.
I'm gonna get in some shenanigans then.
Just wink right and left.
When I go to Europe, that's gonna be how I get my
You'll be
my
the
bling.
winking American. Okay, so eventually, spoiler alert, Sophie dies.
What?
And it is so sad. I truly finished this book and just sobbed. Granted, I was on an airplane where I cry a lot anyways, but like I cried. I just was like, I've had to feel all my feelings and like let them come out of me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was so sad.
This was extra sad because for me, comparing to like a Nicholas Sparks love story where the whole thing is so ridiculous anyway that even if it ends sad, you're like, well, none of that would actually happen. But this felt like a lot more of a realistic love story because they didn't like each other at first. It was gradual. It was almost like a practical love that it was way more sad.
Yeah, I agree.
I was also sad for the fact that she had to experience so much grief in her final moments, like holding her stillborn child. It's just like, it's bad enough that she's going to die, but she also has to be like struck with her own pain before she goes.
Yeah. And, well, I also think it brings up these like extreme feelings of helplessness, which in modern society we don't do that. Like there's almost never a situation nowadays where it's, unless you're like extremely old, where it's kind of just like, well, we'll just stand here and watch them die. Like the life-saving measures, the like extremes we go to prolong life in America, like make this situation I think even harder to read.
Or
where
you
it's
would
just
at
like
least be calling 911 or calling
there's
someone.
literally right. There are always steps you can take to try to make the outcome different. Give CPR, like get a defibrillator, like call 911, like is there a doctor on board? Like I mean, there's all these things like systems we've built in to keep this exact situation from happening, where it's just complete helplessness until someone dies. Like that's so sad.
It was also like a roller coaster of emotions because when the baby is stillborn, you think, oh, that was the grave, that was the death.
Yes,
it's over. Like, that was sad, but it's over. And then no.
There's more grief to come.
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt really bad, too. I felt guilty as a reader, being almost relieved when the baby died.
When the baby
So
died?
like, okay, because she's going to live.
Yeah,
I know, I felt so bad. I'm like, oh, God.
They can make another one.
Yeah.
Right. Like, life will go on. They can still have a family. It's okay. As long as they make it. Right. And then I was like, oh, another baby? Shit, she's going to die.
I was just like, love isn't real. No one's allowed to have love. This proves it.
Oh, I know. It's really sad. And then he leaves. And he makes the right choice. Like, he's got to go.
Of course. Well, he has no
because
choice.
the baby's going to die if he stays. So might as well go be on the open ocean and risk it. I mean, there's nothing left to risk, essentially.
But that was another, the element of his departure, because we assume that he found contact with somebody because of his radio transmission. shenanigans where he figured out the directionality of where they were coming from. And it's just such a bummer that he like thought of that so late, because they were there for a while. Yeah. And you know, with that kind of information, and their boat, they could have really had a shot at it.
Yeah. I think it's that what we were talking about before, where the maternal and paternal instincts unlocked something inside you that wasn't there before, that it needed that push.
Yeah. To make that journey.
Yeah. Or to think in that way.
Yeah. Right. Oh, that's so sad. And then he gets, so he gets in the boat and he sails off. And that's basically all we get. Then we get our final chapter. Or one of the final chapters. Let me see. So all we get is, and then he pushed off. What began on the chilly side has turned into a lovely spring day. The man decides to walk home from the cemetery instead of hailing a taxi. So this is bookended with, we're in Paris. We're seeing this man. We now know it's Barry, obviously. We know Sophie isn't there. She didn't make it, but he is somehow in Paris. There's someone else in the apartment. Then we find out it's the daughter. He thanks his art dealer, talks to the art dealer on the phone. The little girl comes down. They're going to play baseball. What did you think of this ending? Oh, and the American student comes and she sees them in the street and is invited to play baseball with them, with Barry and his daughter.
I didn't really understand the point of that part.
Okay.
It felt like it was included to kind of like tidy up her presence in the novel as a whole, but I wasn't sure like what the main purpose of that was.
Yeah, like are they going to be friends now? Are they? Yeah.
I mean, the only thing that I could think of was, you know, Barry went on this whole journey because he was moved by an artist and he decided to change his life because he was inspired by somebody else. And here, over the course of our little snippets that we see of this young art student, she's going to see his work and is being moved in a similar way. So I was like, oh, is this like
a passing of the torch kind of a thing?
Yeah, or just like the power of connection to maybe even people that you don't actually have a connection to. Like, that's the only takeaway that I got from including this whole bit about the art students. I don't know if there's more.
Well, and I almost thought like we could get another story of like where this art student goes to French Polynesia,
maybe that's
to see where Barry was, you know, because Barry. So it's just just sort of like this continuous like lineage of people who have been like inspired by this place in some way, to create art around it.
I mean, and I feel like so much of what we were talking about is examples of like how the presence of another person changes your mindset and changes what you're capable of. It was like, it wasn't until paternal and maternal instincts kicked in that they started changing what they were doing. It wasn't until he wanted to impress Sophie that he decided to make soap. So it's like, what is now this new student capable of now that she's been in the presence of someone?
Becoming a professional baseball player.
Put some mustard on it!
Which
I really love.
Put some mustard on it!
I really was charmed by...
Well, I have been impressed that we have talked about this book for an hour without using basically any French words.
Mostly because we don't trust our pronunciation.
I don't know how to say them. Ooh, listen to you.
What was it? Ooh.
You just say wee wee. Anytime, yeah.
Ooh wee wee.
Okay, any final thoughts? Any closing thoughts on Castle of Water by Dane Huckelbridge? It's okay if you don't have any. We talked about a lot of stuff.
It was really excellent. Like, there was never a moment that I wanted to stop reading.
Yeah.
And, like, I feel like we talked so much about the narrative involving Barry and Sophie, but, like, all of those, like, snippets that the author included of just, like, jumping in and out of their story, in other hands might have felt, like, really disconnecting, but I really thought that it served the storytelling.
Yeah.
It was both a survival story and sort of a romance story with more elements of realism than a lot of other romance and or survival stories, which I really appreciated.
Mm-hmm.
And I appreciated the voice of the narrator, which felt like a character in and of itself.
It did, and it was very funny and very witty and kind of like pointed.
Yeah. It was like objective but opinionated.
Yeah. I agree. I loved the narration.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Are we going to get to see a movie of this book?
I think so.
Yeah. Did you find out anything on casting? I know that we were like talking like
no, but I did recommend. I recommended to him some great ideas for casting.
What were your recommendations?
I said Marie Cotillard, Marion Cotillard.
Right.
Is her name Marie or Marion? Marion.
I always say Marion Cotillard, but that's probably wrong.
Yeah, I don't know how to say it. She's actually French.
Yeah.
And she's got that beautiful accents. She'd be great. And then I said Jason Sudeikis for
what?
Barry because he's so funny.
Yes.
Couldn't you see him all like
Yes.
bearded and like
Yes.
like Island Castaway-y? Oh yeah, I can see it.
Well, because in How I Met Your Mother, he plays like a guy in a suit or whatever, but doesn't have,
Wait.
like, he's a lawyer.
Jason Sudeikis?
I'm thinking of Jason Segel.
Jason Segel. Oh, Jason Segel is a good one too.
That's interesting.
Jason Segel's a really good one. That's a great idea. All right, go read it. It's great. Thanks for listening. Thank you both for being here.
Thanks for having
Books
us.
with Brookes. Yeah, find us on Instagram, Books with Brookes, and anywhere podcasts are played.
Octopodcasts. I'm sorry, I wanted to say that at one point.
Have you been holding that?
I have, but I'm like, there's no way to bring it up. I'm just gonna say it now.
Podcast. Books with Brookes is in the Press Play Podcast Network, and our theme music is by Jonathan Allen.